Hello, Dr. Paul. My name's Alex, and one thing I've been following the news recently that's been kind of alarming me is this National Defense Authorization Act. I'd like to know some of your thoughts on it, and I would hope they be in line with my fear of this, please.
About is the Defense Authorization Act. In the House, they were tinkering with the words that was signed into law after 9/11 to go after Al-Qaeda, people responsible for 9/11. I supported that. But that morphed into going after all terrorists around the world and invading countries. It was gross distortion of that authority. So instead, some of us wanted to eliminate the authority because bin Laden's got done and, you know, they've abused it. But no, instead of that, they put in the House that they added it. They not only had the Al-Qaeda, they added the Taliban. And the Taliban are people not making plans to come here. The Taliban is mainly motivated to keep people out of their country. Matter of fact, our current government right now is starting to talk to the Taliban. So what was changed in the House was said that anybody, it was the Taliban plus associated forces. Associated forces mean that if you happen to visit a website that is controversial, or maybe attended a mosque or something like that, and somebody in that mosque was a bad guy, and you were associated, that you would be, you know, subject to being arrested. But when the Senate got it, they said that they could be arrested by the military and taken in. And some of the senators on the House floor bragged, when we get one of those guys and they ask for a lawyer, just tell them, no lawyer for you. And these are just suspects. And this is on top of last February when the president announced that it's a national policy that the president's allowed to assassinate American citizens without a trial or charges made. And it's happened 3 times already. But people say, well, yeah, but that Al-Awlaki, he was a bad guy. But what about his son, who was 16 years old? He was the second target. Oh, we didn't know he was so young. I mean, this is really, really bad. And it got passed this week. The Senate made it worse. It came back to the House, and there was no chance of stopping it. And the president was anxious to have it. No, that is major. It's very, very dangerous. We've essentially repealed our Bill of Rights, the Patriot Act, which I think should have never been passed. Repealed the Fourth Amendment. This essentially repeals the Fifth Amendment. This also. Freedom, the ideas of freedom developed slowly over many centuries. And they were trying to establish some of these principles with the Magna Carta in 1215. We're thrown out the window. So I'm glad you're interested, and I'm glad you know about it. I sure wish something more could have been done about it. Check and see how your representatives vote. That might not hurt anything.
Added in, and that Americans are exempt. That's what I had a letter.
Oh yeah, that's what they're using. But that is not true. Americans are not. They are.
I get it in writing.
But they said the president is no American citizens. No, this is designed for American citizens. They are not exempt. No, it includes American citizens.
Can congressmen lie?
I've heard of that happening. No, you can't impeach him. You know, it's too bad that getting rid of and your turnover up here is rather easy to do. I wish it were that easy in Washington. It has to be the election. I mean, if they really get out of hand, you know, you can, Congress can throw a person out. But who are they going to throw out when they're all guilty? Not all, but...
a bill written in secret by Senator McCain and Senator Carl Levin that would give the U.S. military and not civilian law enforcement agencies the ability to arrest anyone and hold that person indefinitely, even if that person is an American arrested on American soil.
They affirm in statute for the first time a power that the president has merely claimed, and that's the power to detain indefinitely American citizens without charge or trial.
That should be of grave concern to all Americans who care about our constitutional rights to a fair hearing.
Basically, to take them out of the criminal justice system and remove from them the protections that are, quote, guaranteed, close quote, by the Constitution. You oppose this? You drew the ire of John McCain and Carl Levin, senators who drafted this amendment to an appropriations bill in secret. Why are they mad at you? What's your argument?
Well, they're mad at me because I'm defending the Constitution. I'm defending liberty. This country was built upon the idea of liberty. And if we are fighting terrorism and destroying liberty in the process, then we're not really accomplishing the goal of defending this country. So I think we need to go back to the Constitution. American citizens should never be detained, certainly indefinitely, without charge or trial at the discretion of the president. That is completely outrageous, and my constituents agree with me.
Without any of these rights, that person can now be locked away forever under this law. No right to appeal, no right to contest, and therefore, this completely works against the principles we hold dear. Because those principles were set up. The Fifth Amendment and Sixth Amendment were set up to defend us against the overreach of an executive branch. And yet we have stripped away tonight those protections.
There is one thing and one thing only that is protecting American citizens, and that's our Constitution. The checks we put on government power. Should we err today and remove some of the most important checks on state power in the name of fighting terrorism, well, then the terrorists have won.
What's going on here? I mean, everybody in the Senate took an oath to uphold the Constitution, which says no person, doesn't even say no American, it says no person shall be denied life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And here they go ahead and vote for legislation that denies it.
Well, you know, we had a discussion about this among some Republicans at lunch, and one other Republican senator read from the Constitution and pointed out all the places where you are guaranteed a trial by a jury, while you're guaranteed speedy trial, while you're guaranteed habeas corpus, you're guaranteed all these rights. And it does strike me as perplexing that anyone could vote to send an American citizen who's been accused of a crime to a detention center in a foreign land without due process. Really is beyond me.
What justification did these people give for this? Most
of them argue that Hamdi and Quirin, two Supreme Court cases, have justified holding U.S. citizens as enemy combatants. They also argue that the Padilla case did, but that wasn't a Supreme Court case. I guess my point is that I agreed with Scalia, who was the dissent in the Hamdi case, and who said that really high treason has been tried in our courts usually, and it is the exception to ever give up our rights. It's happened during war. But my point about this is a war without end. I'm afraid of giving up the right to trial by jury and hoping that someday they will declare an end to this war and they'll give back the right to trial by jury. It really concerns me.
It's very interesting how people can twist and torture language. Hamdi was a case lost by the Bush administration in which Justice O'Connor said everybody's entitled to a trial. And Quirin was a case lost by the Franklin Delano Roosevelt administration, which said even a German saboteur who was born in the United States of America, was captured trying to blow up munitions plants during World War II, was entitled to a trial. But here you have colleagues of yours who can read the Constitution as you do, basically throwing up their arms and saying, well, since presidents before Obama have gotten away with this, we might as well write it into the law and let him and successors do so lawfully what the other presidents took a chance on doing?
Well, their other argument is that there will be one procedural hurdle, and the procedural hurdle is that there will be a habeas, or you have to present the body. The judge has to rule on whether or not the person can be held. But my argument to them was that, to me, is the beginning of due process. That's not the end of due process. To have a habeas hearing before a judge to see if you can hold a prisoner is the beginning of due process, but that's not all of due process. Due process involves a jury trial, a judge, legal help on both sides of the equation, and a conclusion. So there's much more than just a habeas hearing.
Right.
But they claim that having a habeas hearing is enough. But the problem is then you hold somebody after one hearing, you can hold them indefinitely. Their argument also is they say, well, 27% of the prisoners we've released from Guantanamo went back into combat. But my response to them was, those 27% that were released weren't released because of due process. They were released because some generals in the administration decided to let them go. It had nothing to do with due process letting them go. In fact, due process, we've convicted several people in the United States through due process.
Why would Republicans, the Republicans who voted for this, want to give this power to a president who is the most polarizing in modern times and with whom they disagree on so much, right to his core values? Why give this power to him? They didn't give it to George Bush. They didn't give it to Bill Clinton. Why are they giving it to Barack Obama?
Well, I'm going to agree a little bit with my friend David Schweikert that a lot of the members who voted on this were unclear about the language. The language is written to be intentionally misleading, in my opinion. I think it's intentionally unclear so that the people who do want to give this power to the executive branch can get away with it without scaring off enough of the members where it doesn't pass. Why those members want to give the government that power? I think it's because they trust the government. They believe that the government doesn't make mistakes. They believe that the government doesn't abuse its power, and that's frightening.
I wonder what planet they're living on if they trust the government and they believe it doesn't make any mistakes. All you have to do is read the Constitution. The people who wrote the Constitution didn't trust the government. Is this the end of it? Have we lost this battle? Or is there another vote to come? Is there a chance something will happen in the Senate? Is the president going to sign this? Am I going to wake up on Christmas morning and wonder who's in my backyard?
I think, unfortunately, the president is going to sign it. And I'm not sure that there's much we can do about it right now. We still have to raise public awareness about what the bill does. And we have to remind our members of Congress that this was a 2,000-page bill. And the kind of effort put on members, the kind of pressure was, we have to pass this bill now so we can find out what's in it. For those who were concerned about the provisions, that's essentially what they were told. We have to remind members of Congress that that's not justified, that that's not acceptable.
What we're talking about is an amendment to the Defense Authorization Bill, which permits the United States government to use the military in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, which has been in place since 1876, and to use the military to arrest American citizens and hold them in indefinite detention with no recourse to courts of law. Now, this constitutes the repeal of the United States Constitution.
You're letting them circumvent the Constitution after 200 years here. We'll be the first generations, we argued, that truly abandoned this most important aspect of a free society.
All that we hold dear as Americans in this Constitution about our fair rights as citizens has been trampled on tonight.
Whenever you suspend due process, which in effect suspends the rule of law, you walk down a very dangerous path, and you give authority to your government that it can then wield essentially without restraint.
This is the essence of dictatorship. We look at Nazi Germany and we say, yes, that's the essence of dictatorship, when the Gestapo can just go barge into a person's home at night and cart him away to a concentration camp. That's the system we now live under that's being called freedom.
This Lindsey Graham, or Graham Lindsey, the cracker from South Carolina, he said the United States is a battle zone. Could you imagine that? So that's what's happened.
Senator Lindsey Graham, who supports this bill, says, quote, the homeland is part of the battlefield, and people can be held without trial, whether an American citizen or not. I guess he hasn't read the Constitution recently.
Under the provisions, would it be possible that an American citizen then could be declared an enemy combatant and sent to Guantanamo Bay and detained indefinitely?
No matter who they are, if they pose a threat.
They all voted to give this power to the military, despite the fact that the Pentagon, the FBI, the CIA, the Director of National Intelligence, and the head of the Justice Department's National Security Division all told the Senate, don't vote for this. It's a very bad idea. And yet they did.
What is the most gigantic power that any totalitarian dictatorship can have in its possession? I mean, it's not just the power to tax people or control their economic activity, confiscate their guns. It's the most direct power is the power to just go out and send your military forces